We have Ral and Dar back here, and our sorcerer friend Delgarn. Let's find out. Is he going to attack them in the night and see if he can't enslave them in some way? He could cast Diamond Mine Shatters, which would cause confusion and fear for D6 enemies, or he could cast Doctrine of the Subservient Path. Now that only affects one of the men, but that might be all he needs. So let's see. First of all, let's see if he's going to make a move on them. We'll roll the dice, the bones. Mile hexes. So we just have basic details on here. And the rivers that you see, these teal lines, that's as far as those are navigable. And so while that's not going to play a part necessarily in this episode, it may come up in the future. But what we're going to do is we're going to tag along as our group goes to find a lost tomb at the behest of the historian that the group met during the last downtime. And just to go over all of that, let's see here. Downtime not ease. Days 8 and 9, we used the Mythic Emulator to determine random events for each character upon their return from the foraging mission. Brun-Dax rolled Intolerance and Fears. Lorgan rolled Punish and Outside. Raf rolled Create and Rumor. And the current chaos factor is at 4. So for Brun-Dax, I determined that is this related to the Poor Travelers? And I used the bones dice that I made for Tales of Argosa. And we just rolled those up. This here would be a no. But when I rolled, I got a yes. And so we decided that the travelers make it clear they are in his debt for rescuing them. And the villagers are the intolerant party, and the travelers are afraid. So the travelers have decided to move on to the south. On day 10, we're still in the village of High Fork. Brun-Dax, Lorgan, and Raf, and the historian Morpan will set off for the Lost Tomb, accompanied by 3 of the Poor Travelers. The travelers are armed with staves and daggers. The horse-drawn wagon has 49 rations, 49 water, and the rest of the equipment that they purchased. The weather. I don't like the Kal Arath D6 weather chart. It's too swingy. So I went ahead and made a new system. It is based loosely on a couple of other systems. And we can check out the weather chart here. You roll 2d12, you roll 2d6 for a result between 2 and 12, and then every day you roll again, and the number will move you up or down the list. So say, for instance, we start with a 7, it'll be clear. We'll roll a d6. On a 4 to a 6, it's hot and humid. On a 1 to 3, it's just going to be normal. The next day, we'll roll again, and say we roll a 4. So that's going to be a -1, so we'll go from 7 to 6, which will be clear and intense heat on a 5 or 6. So that is the weather chart that we'll be using. So I rolled 2d6 for a 5, got a clear, and a 6 for light wind. That's going to give +1 to getting lost and +1 for foraging. However, since they're following the river, they will not be getting lost. With good weather, the group is able to make excellent time. They do not find a point of interest. They do not have an encounter. At the end of the day, they arrive at the location of the battle barge Wheel, and Morpan declares he will be able to make a sighting tomorrow when the sun is high. And I already rolled for an overnight encounter, and the answer was no. Now, day 11, rolled 2d6 and got a 12. That's a +2. That takes us up to a 7 for clear. D6 4 means it's hot and humid. The group waits patiently for noon when Morpan can make his sighting for the location of the tomb. So I went ahead and rolled for an encounter, and I got a lone sorcerer. So I made the reaction roll. It came up 3, which means kill. So first, let's find out why the sorcerer is even here. So using the Kal Arath motivation table on page 34, we got escape the past. And rumors and opportunities, we got a 42, which is discover a ritual site. So Delgarn, the sorcerer, has discovered a lost ritual site, the lost tomb of Gamsar. He believes the tomb contains treasures he can use to escape his mentor and begin his own cult. He also needs to use the wheel for sighting for the location of the tomb. Delgam is level 4. Is he tough enough for a direct assault? The answer to that is no. And he is smart enough, he has an intelligence of 3, to know that he cannot win a frontal assault. And so Delgarn's character sheet is right here. He's got strength 1, agility 1, intelligence 3, presence 1, fate of 2, hit points of 6. He's level 4 with 10 experience points. And he's got the Mystic Pact of Domination, and his doom is to speak the name of his patron. So we'll go from there. And because his intelligence is 3, he's able to cast up to tier 3 spells: Diamond Mind Shatters, Doctrine of the Subservient Path, and Life is Only a Mirage. Now, these are pretty powerful, but against a group of 7, it may not be sufficient. So what he's going to do is he's going to wait until after they leave and do a sighting of his own, and then follow at a distance, perhaps striking after they find the tomb of Gamsar. And so that brings us to the afternoon of day 11. And we'll take some notes in just a moment. But I wanted to go ahead and go over the process that we're going to follow here. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit so you can see better. And I've lost my pencil. There we go. Okay, so we're traveling from High Fork over here to where the wagon wheel is. And when they sight over the wagon wheel, they'll be looking south into this hex here. This is a 5-mile hex that is a mountain hex. They're currently in a grasslands hex. And so this is where our adventure is going to take place. The tomb is somewhere in this 5-mile hex. And so we're going to do the travel, and we're going to zoom in yet again. And so what I've done, I have drawn some let's zoom back out here. Superpositions. This is the 5-mile hex. These are 1-mile hexes. And then the smaller sub-hexes, which I don't think you can see, those are 0.2 miles or 1,056 feet. We're going to go ahead and use the Judges Guild campaign hexagon system to determine the details of these as the group moves through them. So right now they're here, and they've taken a sighting off to the south. This hex is the mountain hex. This is the grassland hex. And so they're going to travel. They need to cross the river. So the first thing we have to determine is how big is that river. And so we're going to come here to the hydrographic terrain. And because the map, the larger scale map, shows that this is a navigable river still here, we are going to assume that it's between 60 feet and 1,000 feet wide, because we're pretty far up. And there's only about 10 or 12 miles of river left. So we're going to roll 6, 7, 8, or 9. So that's going to be a D4. All right, so D4 plus 5. That's a 3 plus 5 is an 8. So it's going to be a stream of 100 to 1,000 feet wide. So that's going to be a D10 times 100, which is going to be 1,000 feet wide. So that is very interesting. That means that here at this hex, it's going to cover that entire subhex. Very, very interesting. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this. And so that is the river. It's 1,000 feet wide. That is going to be an obstacle for them to cross. It's also 60 to 360 feet deep. So that's 66. 66 times 10. Ooh, that's really low. 2, 4, 6, 18. So that's going to reach 180 feet deep. They are going to need a boat of some sort to get across that. They have a wagon. So they may be stymied at this point. But they do have a sighting, so they know where they're headed. I'm going to hit pause for just a second while I think about this. All right, sorry about that. This is why I hate zero prep, because you run into these dumb things and then you have to go back and retcon. I really should have rolled to see how wide the river was while we were there. That's a question that would have been asked. So we're going back to day 7, and the boys are going to get 2 canoes, and those canoes will be tucked into the wagon when they make their way up. So now we will return to the river. And so they're going to travel to here, and they're going to leave the wagon and 2 of the poor travelers with the wagon. So Ral and Dar are going to be left with wagon. At the river. And then they'll take the canoes and they'll go across. Now, according to the keen sighting rules, allow 5 miles per foot of height from 1 foot to 10 foot, an additional 2 miles per foot from 11 to 50, and so on. So what that means is a man of normal height, say 6 feet tall, will be able to see 30 miles. That's a long ways. But he won't, because their mountains are here. So they're going to be able to identify at least what these hexes are here, so they'll know which way to travel. So first we're going to go ahead and do some scouting, and we'll use our terrain table. Okay, so here's the terrain table, and we're in grasslands, and we need a d20. So for this hex here, this one is grass, this one is grass. I assigned all of these that have the river to be grasslands, just to make things easier. So this one is a 12, which will be grasslands. Let's go to this one, 5. That is going to be a hill. This one here, 7. That is going to be badlands. Now, there is a 5% chance that there will be floating islands. We need a 20. Nope. Okay. And this X here is a 10. That will be grasslands. And we're not going to be able to see past that. However, we can see this one still. So let's see what we got there. That's a 12. That's more grassland. And then this one is a 16. That's more grassland. So what they're going to do is they're going to travel along this way. And in the afternoon, they'll be able to travel 3 hexes. So that'll put them to right here. So they're going to make a camp right here at the end of the day. And our sorcerer, well, let's just roll for what he's going to do. All right, so we've made camp here. We have Ral and Dar back here, and our sorcerer friend Delgarn. Let's find out, is he going to attack them in the night and see if he can't enslave them in some way? He could cast Diamond Mine Shatters, which would cause confusion and fear for D6 enemies, or he could cast Doctrine of the Subservient Path. Now that only affects 1 of the men, but that might be all he needs. So let's see. First of all, let's see if he's going to make a move on them. We'll roll the dice, the bones. All right, so we have a tie, yes and no, with something extremely bad. And so the answer is no. And this, we're going to ignore this for right now, because since he's not going to attack them or make a move, we have Ral and Dar back here, and our sorcerer friend Delgarn. Let's find out, is he going to attack them in the night and see if he can't enslave them in some way? He could cast Diamond Mine Shatters, which would cause confusion and fear for D6 enemies, or he could cast Doctrine of the Subservient Path. Now that only affects 1 of the men, but that might be all he needs. So let's see. First of all, let's see if he's going to make a move on them. We'll roll the dice, the bones. All right, so we have a tie, yes and no, with something extremely bad. And so the answer is no. And this, we're going to ignore this for right now, because since he's not going to attack them or make a move, we'll just make a note of that. And then we'll go to camp, spend resources, and recover. At the end of the day's travel, we need to find out if there's going to be a nighttime encounter, and there is not. So we'll just summarize the travel, and then in the morning we'll start again. And we'll start by checking the weather. So this will be day 12. And we roll 2d6 for the weather chart. That's a 7. Which will be no change. And we were at clear, so the weather will stay at 7 clear. And on a 4 to 6, it will be hot and humid. It is hot and humid, so that means that there's going to take extra water. All right, so they're going to fill up their waters. Each person can only carry 2 days worth of water, so unfortunately they may need to look and see if there's going to be more water available, but we're going to roll for all these hexes, so that will come out in the wash. Now we go back to the beginning here, and we're going to follow our process. They're not going to forage, they're just going to keep moving. And what we'll do is for each of the 1 mile hexes that they enter, we will roll for a point of interest because we're moving more slowly and moving through definitely wilderland terrain. So let's go ahead and get out our chart. And we're going to use the movement obstacles. So these are 0.2 mile hexes, and we are in open general. So we're going to roll a d10 and find out where we're at. So that's going to be a 1. That's just more flatlands. And we're going to assume this is flatlands here. So this will be flatlands. A 9. All right, so there's hydrographic terrain here. And it's just basic hydrographic, so we'll roll 1 to 10. 10, unusual. Again, 7, there's a pond. All right. 100 to 1,000. 900 feet in diameter. So there's a large pond here. So they're going to go around that. 7. It's just flora. We're going to ignore flora and call that grasslands. And moving here, that's a 1. That's more flatlands. And they're going to be going south as much as they can. So here we go. We have another hydrographic. That's a 1. That's a rivulet. 2 to 12 feet wide. All right, so we're just going to put rivulet here. And we're just going to barge on through that. Our next hex is 2, which is flatlands again. And flatlands again. And now, this is a grasslands hex, but we're going to be moving into the mountain hex. So we're going to change to here. And what I'm going to do is roll for each of these hexes here to see what those are. And that will be on the large scale chart. All right, so for mountains, we'll roll in D20. So we're going to roll for this one. And that's a 17, which is 5,000 plus peak. So this is tall. There's a tall mountain there. I may have to go around that one. Let's see what this one is. Oops, that's a D10. A 6. All right, that's up 3,000 to 5,000 peak. And so we're not going to be able to find out what this one is until they move through. So let's see if one of these has a pass. We're going to use the AD&D rule, where each mountain hex has a 1 in 20 chance of having a pass. There we go. So there is going to be a pass through the mountains here, through this hex. And let's see, what's the best way to do that? Well, definitely, let's just do this. Let's do... And then does it go here, here, or here? 6. It's going to go this way. And no, that's not good. I don't like that. The pass through this hex. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what we're going to do. 2. All right, so the pass is going to run through here. And so they'll be able to follow that. Now, this hex is a 5. That's going to be hills. So this will be easier to traverse. And this one will go back to the movement obstacle chart for hills. Roll a d10. A 2, we have flatland. So the pass comes out into a little flatland area. The next one is a 9, hydrographic terrain. A 7, a runlet. So there's a bit of a river here. This is going to be 1. This will be 6. Where does it start? At 5. So it's coming this way. And then where does it go out? At 1. It goes this way. All right. So I don't know where that's going, but there's water running that way. And it's 80 to 480 wide. That's 8d6. $10, 20, 38. It's 38 feet wide. Let's see. We're going to go around it. Let's go down here. 1. Is flatlands. The next one here, this one is 7, flora. We're going to make that hill. That's this one here. 1, flatlands. All right, so we're going to move through there. And let's see, now that we're in the center, there is... Okay, where do we want to go next? Let's roll for these two. This one is a 5. Lowlands. So that's a d20. An 18. There's going to be a crater. That's interesting. And the other one is, oops, I'm sorry, 2 flatlands. All right, so they're going to follow this little pass through here. Let's check out these two. 3 is uplands 1 to 10. So uplands 7 is a hillock, so it's going to rise 200 feet here. And then the other one is a 9 hydrographic. We're going to re-roll. 2 flat. All right, this is making some very unusual things. All right, what do we got here? This hex is, whoops, 10. There's going to be a mountain hex. So we come here to mountains and we roll our D10. 7 lowlands. 19 a chasm. All right, so there's a chasm here, 30 to 180 feet wide, 110 foot wide chasm. What do we have over here? 2 uplands, 1 to 20. Uplands 17 is a tour. It rises 4,000 to 24,000 feet. But our max height here is 5,000. So let's crank that down a little bit. And let's do let's do 3,000 plus 700. This is going to rise 2,700 feet here, plus 2,700. That's going to be a very steep cliff on the other side of that chasm. What do we got here? This is interesting. Uplands, 1 to 20, 12, a mount, 600 to 3,600 feet. That's 2,500 feet. So this is plus 2,500. All right, what do we have here? An 8 hydrographic. You know what? We're going to say the chasm extends and there's water at the bottom of it. All right, let's roll for this one. 6. Lowlands, that's better. 11, a glen, 100 to 1,000. So that's a D10 times 100. 600. So this is going to be plus 600 feet here. That's something they can negotiate. All right, so let's look at these two. A 9. That is flora. So we're going to make that a plateau, which is 600 feet above and still across from that. Let's check this one here. That's another 9. So this is going to be a little plateau up there. And we're trying to get over here because that's where we see our thing. 1 flatlands. And 2 uplands, 1 to 20. A 10 is a hill, 500 feet to 3,000 feet. 5 to 30, 5d6. 6, 12, 15. So this is plus 1,500. All right, let's try this one. 2 uplands, 1 to 20. 20. A crest. See the subtable. Crest right here. D6. 1. There's a dome. Takes up 1 to 4 hexes. 2. So let's say the dome is going to take up these 2 hexes here. And we'll be able to traverse that. What do we got here? A 2. which is uplands again. A 5, which is a mound, an additional 60 to 360 feet. So that is 5, 6, 18, 20, 220 feet here. So that's doable. And let's try this one. That's a 6, lowlands. An 8, there's a dell, 30 to 180 feet deep. 130 feet. So minus 130. And let's see what we got going on here. That's a 6. Lowlands again. 16, a defile. That is going to drop 700 to 4,200 feet. 2, 5, 7, 10, 20, 31. Minus 3,100. All right, we may have to go this way. Let's see what's over here. A 3, uplands 1 to 20. A 9, a butte, rises 400 to 2,400 feet. 1,200 feet. That might be too steep for us. We're going to go ahead and go down into the dell, and then we need to get back up to this one here. So let's try this one. 5, uplands 1 to 20. A 10, a hill 5 to 3,000. So 5d6. That's what we want. We want it upwards. 6, 10, 1,600 feet. Perfect. All right, so this is some serious climbing. It's also hard to track what we're going to do for the day here. So I want to say this is going to take up the rest of the day. So they're going to get to the top of this, and it's going to be dark. But let's go ahead and survey these last 3 and see what they are. But we're going to have to camp right here. This is a 9. That's going to be flora. So we're going to have that be a plateau. 6 is lowlands. 14, that's a valley. 400 to 2,400. 9, 10, 12, minus 1,200. So that's not good. And this one is an 8. Hydrographic, we're going to re-roll. We're too high for that. Fauna, we're going to call this plateau as well. All right, so we are here. I'm going to put a little X, and that's where we're going to camp. We didn't roll for any encounters. Let's go ahead and roll for an encounter. And a 1 or a 2 is an encounter. We don't have an encounter. And now let's roll for... No, actually, that's the end of the day. So that'll be the end of day 12 in the campaign, the 3rd day out on the trail. Yeah, okay, let me make some notes, and I'll be right back. All right, so to summarize, during the day's travel, the group was able to find a pass through the mountains, and I just did some rolls to find out how much each of these rises, because this whole area has to continue to rise as it moves up into the mountains. So along this path, along this 1 mile stretch, it rose 2,000 feet. So this pass is fairly steep. Each of these alpine meadows is an additional 50 foot higher. So they rose another 300 feet or so as they traveled until they hit the chasm. Then they went up a steep incline here, 600 feet, and then they followed these 3 alpine meadows, rising another, which I want to say that puts them at 3,150 feet here. And then we have the dome, which they traveled over, and then rose another 220 feet. And that dome was 240 feet, I believe. So that's 3390, 35, 3610 by the time we get here. And then they go through this little dell, which will be 3480. And then they find themselves in a bit of a dilemma. So I rolled for this one and this one because I don't know that they want to climb this 1,600-foot cliff. So there's a 900-foot cliff here and there's a 1,200-foot cliff here. This one is more of a 45-degree angle. So this will be a little bit easier to traverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a d10 for each of the characters. I'm sorry, a d20. And there'll be a 5% chance. There'll be a 5% chance. If they roll a 1, they'll have to make us ability score, agility check, to see if they're going to fall and possibly take any damage. So let's go ahead and start with Brun-Dax the Mystic. No. Lorgan. No. Dot-Raff. No. Morpan. No. And then Traveler Lynn. No. Okay, so everybody's good. They make it up to the top of the 900-foot cliff, and that is where they're going to camp. It's right here. And on day 13, they'll resume their journey and be able to find the thing. Now, the other trick is that our friend the sorcerer how's he going to get across? He certainly doesn't want to swim. So, during the day, while the crew is walking along here, he's going to go ahead and charm one of these fellas. So let's go ahead and figure out how to cast a spell. This is going to be our first spell. And he's going to approach the two. Casting is a base 8 difficulty, which increases by 1 for each tier of the spell. So he needs a 9 with his intelligence of 3. Right, because it's a tier 2 spell, Doctrine of the Subservient Path. So that'll be a 9 that he needs to roll on 2d6. Intelligence is +3, so he's going to get a +3 to this roll, which is pretty good. But he needs a 9. He needs to get a 6. So let's see what we got. Oh, Snake Eyes. This is terrible. That'll be a 5. It's going to be a critical failure. A lesser demon takes hold of the caster's body, seeking to use it for its own dark purposes. The caster's soul is trapped and tormented. Becoming totally enslaved to the demon, your adventure is at an end. So, unfortunately, Delgarn the sorcerer has been possessed by a demon. And will that demon attack our poor travelers? Let's see. Yes. Yes, indeed. There are 2 yes results. But there's also a sun, which means there's something beneficial here. So let us say that while the demon attacks, let's see, which one is it? 1, 2, 3 is Ral. 4, 5, 6 is Dar. Dar is going to be killed by a demon. While that demon is killing Dar, Ral is going to run off. And it's a good, but it's not extra good. This would be the extra good. So I'm going to say if it was extra good, he got away with the horse and wagon. He did not get away with the wagon. He was able to run away and escape with his life. And now let's see, will the demon leave? Or will the demon kill the horse too while it's there? Let's see. We have a no. And the tiebreaker is a no. And something very good happens. So the demon is just going to leave. He's not going to kill the horse. So what will happen is Ral will sneak back at dusk because he doesn't have any supplies and find that the horse and wagon are probably still okay. Let's see if there was an encounter during the day for our horse and wagon. There was not. All right, so good for them. They have survived, and let me just jot these notes down. All right, so that brings us to the end of day 12, and they're camped here in the mountains. I think what I'll do is go ahead and stop the video here, and then in the next video, we'll start with day 13, and they'll make their way across the meadow here to the location of the tomb, which is in the center of this hex. And that is where we will begin. That's where we'll begin the dungeon delve. So I have half a mind to use the dungeon game for the dungeon delve portion of this. Not the Kal Arath thing. I haven't had a chance to play dungeon, and I think that'll be fun. So I think for the first one here, I'm going to go ahead and use the dungeon game, and so that'll be what we'll use for the dungeon delve process. And for those of you who are still here, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Be sure and hit like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing any comments down below, and or any suggestions for that matter. And as always, keep on gaming.